The remainder of chapter 29 and the beginning of chapter 30 is quite interesting and has lots of lessons about human nature, about spirituality. It has to do with relationships, and it certainly has God's master plan for the 12 tribes of Israel, all in just a chapter and a half, if you will, maybe even a chapter and a quarter, are all of those things. We left Jacob, and we saw that he finally got Rachel to be his wife, but he also had Leah as a wife. And the text very clearly tells us that Jacob loved Rachel. The word is quite silent about how Leah felt about Jacob, about how Rachel felt towards Leah, or how Leah felt about Rachel to this point. But we can see that it can become very complex in relationships. And I think when God talked about one man and one woman becoming one flesh, he certainly might have had some of these kinds of things in his mind about how difficult a relationship could be when three people are involved in a relationship, in a romantic relationship, if you will. And so as we go into the last part of chapter 29, we find that the Lord saw that Leah was unloved and Rachel was barren. Now, I think it would be foolish for you to believe that Rachel was barren because God was angry at Rachel for anything. That just happens sometimes. And I think it's very important to remember that God saw Leah's unhappiness because she was unloved. A relationship without love is not much of a relationship, and I think we can all learn from that. You can't enter into a relationship based on physical things, nor can you enter into a relationship on convenience or economics. A relationship has to be based on love, or true romantic relationship anyway. And so it tells us that the Lord saw that, and he allowed Leah to bear children. Much more than that, he allowed Leah to bear male children. Now, as you watch the progression of the children that are born to Leah, you see the attitude of Leah changing with each child. You see, Leah seemed to understand that the Lord was allowing her to have children while he was not allowing Rachel to have children. The first child that she named Reuben, she believed, now my husband will love me. How many couples have thought that even though their relationship may not be doing very well, that if they would just have children together, it would fix the relationship? Well, children don't usually fix relationships. Children usually bring more stress into a relationship. Evidently, Leah didn't understand that principle, and she just believed that if she could just bear Jacob a boy child, that would fix everything, because that was a great status symbol in the days of Leah and Jacob. However, that didn't fix the relationship, and she bore again. This time she bore Simeon, and she again this time felt unloved, and that she was not loved by Jacob. The third child is Levi, and she says, at least maybe he'll feel attached to me. With three boys, maybe that will give him, if he doesn't love me, maybe that'll at least give him an attachment to me. I think that progression is quite interesting. Thinking that it's going to fix the relationship, then realizing that she's still unloved, and then figuring, well, at least he'll feel attached to me because we have three boys. But that didn't work either. And then she had Judah, and now she comes to a place of no longer thinking physically and in the way of the world, but she starts to think spiritually, and maybe she's starting to enjoy the boys themselves And at this time when Judah is born, she said, I know the Lord loves me. I know the Lord loves me. Even if Jacob doesn't, I know the Lord loves me, for he's given me 4 wonderful boys. And so she praises him. She praises him in spite of her circumstances of not being loved by Jacob. And it tells us very clearly at that point she stops bearing for a time. And we will go further with this story tomorrow, but I think it's very, very interesting if you go back and read chapter 29, verses 31 and to the end of the chapter, that you'll see that even 4 children didn't make Jacob love Leah. And so we shouldn't look for children to bring happiness or love between a man and a woman. But we also need to understand that God had a master plan, and his master plan was to bring about the 12 tribes of Israel and the outcome of those 12 tribes as the promised land was developed and as captivity and as all of the events of Israel unfolded. So let me summarize. Jacob loved Rachel. Leah was forced upon him. Leah knew she wasn't loved. Leah was pleased finally after the 4th child that God loved her even if Jacob didn't. And we see these 2 wives coming into somewhat of a conflict because Rachel is still barren and Leah has produced 4 male children for Jacob, which is a status symbol in the community. So let's take a look tomorrow and see how this all develops as we think about relationships, as we think about children, as we think about God's plan, and as we think about how we read life situations into our spiritual lives. And that's my thought for the day. God bless you. Have a great day.